Hello, everyone. My name's Ethan. I go by Lord Thethan. I am a Peak GM4 support player turned into a hard-stuck Diamond Hitscan OTP, and I serve as the head coach for U Buffalo Esports Overwatch. I've been working with their varsity team since spring of 2021. My focus is on fundamentals, principles, and standardized rules that make the game a little easier to play and understand. It's been a long while, guys, and I'm happy to return to coaching Overwatch more openly. I'm looking forward to sharing my ideas, and I'm so beyond grateful for all those who are willing to watch, engage, and resonate with, or even contend against my viewpoints. With all that said, let's get into it. Tonight we are looking at some Juno gameplay. This is from someone kind enough to have their replay material reviewed, so that we can exploit some learning opportunities from it and even elevate some of the things that we notice they do particularly well. This is going to be a Juno player called Edwin, and for a little bit of context, they mentioned they strictly only play Juno since it's almost never banned in their ranked games. Long gone are the days where she was so overwhelmingly powerful that she was a must pick and a perma ban. And they play Juno in Silver 4. So there's going to be actually a lot of like really good options that they've got when it comes to engaging with the game. They say I did my first ever support placements last season and got bronze and made my way up to Silver 5, which is, by the way, that's awesome. That's like actually really impressive. It's so easy to get trapped in bronze, so it's really amazing that you've done your placements, got bronze, and you've already made it up to Silver 5. This season I did Silver 4, and I've been stuck for the last 25 games. I know I could play better, but I've been super inconsistent with average heals and deaths. I also lack decision making and never know when to use E or right click, and also don't know when to reload. So those are some really interesting points, and also some great context to go according to. This is an Eichenwald game, and man, I do have to say, stop voting Eichenwald, everyone. Oh my goodness, Eichenwald is such a troubling map to play. I hate playing it. My win rate on Eichenwald is very bad. So stop voting for this map. Stop voting for this map. All right. Okay, so with Juno, sorry, I'm doing a lot of talking, so my throat hurts. With Juno, one of the one of the things that you're thinking about is simultaneity. Your blaster does healing and damage. Your right click, your torpedoes, does healing and damage. Your speed boost can be used to send teammates in or kite them back. Your ray can amplify damage at the same time as it heals. Your boosters can help you get to a new position or help you glide away, and as well, when you get certain perks, they even give you other advantages. So when you're playing Juno, you're really thinking about all of the different things that this character can do. Now that's important on every character, but particularly poignant on this character. We start things off, and I do want to remark this is something you'll see in all of my VOD reviews: closer to walls, corners, and covers. Instead of starting here, I could absolutely imagine it being fair to start up here and then just backing off as soon as you take any damage. But being out here in the middle of the open makes you liable to take a lot of damage, really intense damage, really early on, right? You're right behind your hog, and this is the character that is the biggest in the lobby, that is easiest to shoot, and everyone's going to be shooting him. And if anyone misses their shot on him, guess where that's going to instead? It's going to go to the Juno, who's standing right behind him. It should be you eating this sleep dart. It is you almost eating this fire strike, and it is you during your glide boosters, which you could be double jumping to avoid some of the spam, to play the arched cover, especially if you're looking to cross distance from this side right to this side. Jumping for that is a good way to dodge any spam damage that comes through. Or once being over here, you could just play this corner. You should never really be more than 1.5 meters away from your nearest walls, corners, and covers at all times. And that doesn't mean that you should only ever stay near a corner. You constantly have to move from place to place, corner to cover, choke to choke, right? And sightline to sightline, angle to angle. But you don't want to be out in the open either, right? You go critical, and the easiest way to not take this damage is to just not play in positions where it's going to be, where that damage is going to be cast. Especially in like the opening of the match, all people are going to be doing is going to be shooting through this choke. Instead of lighting up a right clicky on this Roadhog, I'm actually looking to just heal him to full HP. Be careful, there's a little bit of like an extra step here. Instead of just moving away, you actually pull your glide boosters, and then you even like walk forward into a little bit of damage, right? So just make sure that every step that you take, every movement that you make is like really, really intentional. There's a reason that I pushed this key. There's a reason I made this input, right? And here, you probably don't need to right click. Remember, simultaneity, right? So if all that you can do right here, all that you need to do is heal your hog, which, by the way, all that you need to do here is just live, right? So can you heal hog from this corner? Can you heal hog from this cover? Do you dodge fire strike or additional spam damage by moving all the way over here and healing him only with your blaster when you can double jump and bring him into your line of sight with that? Those are all options that you can pursue. But remember, look at how far you are, right? You are more than 1.5 meters away from any point of walls, corners, and covers, right? So you have to be in cover. The right click here is a little unnecessary, especially since you can just use your regular blaster to do the healing here. And if you're talking about like I don't know when to reload, that's really like, you know, just as simple as when you need to, right? So here you still have 117 bullets in the clip. You have a teammate that goes down. You have a Roadhog who still isn't full HP, and you have enemies that you could pressure, right? So whether you're healing Roadhog, whether you're shooting the Emre to force him to stop shooting you as much, right? If you start shooting him and you land your bullets, which you absolutely could do, then you're going to force him to back off and find cover, right? So I like the fact that you play your angle here and you try to play cover, although you are, again, more than 1 meter away from your walls and corners. And I don't mind the ring to help your Moira, although really the ring could probably be deployed, oh goodness. So we deploy ring here. We're in glide boosters, which we use to walk into damage, and then we go for right clicky here, and then we go for, okay, yeah. So ring could probably actually go to your Roadhog here, and then that would give you the speed boost. Your Moira doesn't need it because she should have fade. Ideally, she has fade. She does have fade here, so that's the cooldown that lets her get out. And your Roadhog is really the only one. You and your Roadhog are really the only ones who will need speed here, right? So the Ray could actually, I'm sorry, the ring could go out just a little bit earlier. And then remember, it's always safer in than out, right? So instead of moving back and getting forced back by this Reaper, couldn't you just dodge him, right? Couldn't you just glide up here, and now Reaper has to TP into you, right? And then wouldn't gliding up here bring you to this health pack, right, which you could grab? Wouldn't it bring you close to your Roadhog, who would absolutely rather fight the Reaper than the Reinhardt, right? So when I say it's always safer in than out, there's actually very few scenarios where it isn't better to go in when you're under pressure than it is to move away from your threats. Yeah, I like that pressure. Careful. Once again, you're away from walls, corners, and covers, and actually, instead of gliding all the way out here, you could actually just continue. You could just play over here, right? You could use this wall instead. I like that ring. I actually do like that ring to help your hog get out. You probably actually could have, instead of engaging with the enemy, you probably could have ringed him out of spawn, and that way you would have it, you could use it sooner so that you have it a little bit sooner, but I like the nature of this ring. I don't have as many problems with this ring as I have with other Juno rings that I've seen cast in my lifetime. Now, you're not on high ground, and if you go to high ground, you would be the only one there, right? But you are a little far away from, like, anywhere where the fight is happening, right? So you've actually used your cooldown to, like, move out, but I'm curious about like what you're moving away from, right? You're moving away from the objective, which you need to contest, right? The way that they win is by moving the cart, and the way that you win is by stopping the cart. So you need to contest the objective. You need to find your next position from which you can find any kind of available intel, right? Where are your enemies? What are they doing? What are they planning? What cooldowns are they using, right? Where can you see that Reaper has used Wraith? And what does that information give you, right? So you want to be not out in the open, but somewhere that gives you info, right? That could be up here on the high ground where you got plenty of cover, which high ground is just always where you want to be, by the way. High ground is just a good spot, right? You want to be within your effective range. Juno's healing is not effective at allies at the ranges that you're playing right now, right? So you want to be a little bit closer to the fight, and you've got a really nice high ground position that you could be on here too, and this would give you lots of info. You can double jump up here. In fact, I don't think you even need your glide boots to get up here, right? And this position was attainable from this spot, which you moved all the way out here from. But also, again, what's the point of moving out here? Were you afraid of a threat? There was no one near you, right? So we come out of spawn, and instead of double jumping onto the truck and then double jumping onto the height, right, so that we can move out here, get a little bit of info, and then that will tell us like what to do or where to go next, right? We wander down main, out in the open, away from walls, corners, covers, take a little bit of damage. Instead of immediately going to the closest wall and corner, we just move backwards, right? But the more we move backwards, the longer, the more time it's going to take for us to move back forwards. And we can see some of our teammates are already fighting, right? So wouldn't we rather be in with our team rather than out by ourselves, where there aren't enemies to shoot, there aren't allies to shoot? And if there aren't enemies or allies to shoot, how are you going to get your ult? Overwatch is very much about building your ult as quickly as possible so that you can use it as quickly as possible, so that you can build it as quickly as possible. So again, there's all these reasons to be on high ground, to be over here, and there's all these questions about like why to be all the way back here, right? I wouldn't want you feeling threatened by just footsteps, right? I want you to be enticed by them. Seek out where the footsteps are coming from. Find out where your opponents are, right? Because if it's a Reaper, you know you can play away. If it's a Sojourn, you know not to double peek. If it's a Widow, you know to be very, very careful, and you know that if it's a Roadhog, it's time to bounce, right? It's time to ditch whatever this position is, right? But instead here, now you're still in this position, right? Even though the fight is totally different, right? So if we look over the course of so right here, you're here, right? This is 547. This is 1 minute 27 seconds into the game. And then we come back out here. What did I say? 127? Okay. Yeah. And so like up until like 137, we were still here. So for like a full 10 seconds, we actually basically didn't move at all, right? Didn't take any high ground positions, right, here or over here. Didn't secure any map control, right, coming up and making sure that we're nearby a mini pack. We also didn't build nearly as much ultimate as we could have, right? When we come back out of spawn here, we are 18% to our ultimate. And when this series of decisions is done being made, we're only at 25, 26% to our ultimate, and we're down teammates, right? So it's possible that there's I'm not entirely sure what there is to be afraid of, right? Especially since like you're happy to kind of like run up on the M-ray here, right? And again, there's a more effective range to do it, right here, or a little bit closer. There's more effective positions to do it at, high ground, where you have a little bit of an angle over him, and where you have options out, right? Where do you go if someone runs up on you here, right? You could go into castle, but that's a little scary if the threats are operating there. You kind of can't jump to high ground unless you like really devote your abilities and a little bit of time to that, right? And you could cross the distance, but that costs abilities, and it sends you further back. Remember, it's not better out than in. It is always better in than out in Overwatch, and especially during fights, right? So so you really can't go anywhere, but on high ground you have options. So play the high ground. That will give you options, and that will also help you understand, like, if you see all of them walk through the choke and all of your teammates walk out, isn't that a very obvious right click that you can go for, right? Isn't that very obvious to go for the torpedoes that hit both allies and enemies and help you achieve simultaneity on Juno, right? Isn't only healing your hog here and only damaging the M-ray here, does that really help you be simultaneous with Juno, right? Are you doing the damage and the healing that you're capable of doing, right? Those are some of the questions that I might be asking if I'm playing Juno. Am I doing all of the different things that this character lets me do? So just generally, I think playing a little bit closer to your formation, your team's formation, although not quite nearly as close as you were playing at the opening phases of this map. And I would also be looking to play ranges that are appropriate against my matchups, right? So play a little bit further away from Reaper and Reinhardt. Play a little bit more angular against heroes like Sojourn and M-ray, right? Be careful about the jumping. Be careful about the jumping. I don't like jumping. It raises your center of mass. It makes you easier to hit. It makes your movement really predictable, and it also messes up your crosshair placement, right? So I think that your shots are actually easier against the Reaper if you stop jumping. And it looks like all of your abilities are very self-serving, right? You use your shift here instead of just walking up the stairs, right? Because the shift here is actually more valuable, especially if you combo it with right-click, because you can just jump, shift, right-click, and then come back here by the time your shift is finished, right? But now that's not an option for you because you've just used shift to walk upstairs, right? When you could have just used the legs that you've been given, right? Really, basically shift and right click. I should have mentioned this at the start. A lot of Juno players like really like to pair those abilities together. They really enable each other, right? So if you're using shift and not right click, or you're using right click without shift, both abilities, the shift key or the glide boost is not going to be as it's not going to give you as many options, and the right click won't be as valuable if it's not used. So so as far as like when to use these cooldowns, honestly, with each other, when they help you do several different things, when the movement gives you the ability to dodge and get out in the open and take risks for a very short period of time. It's a short time because the movement speed is faster, right? So if you didn't have a speed boost, right, it might take you a little while to line up a right click, but with the speed boost that you get from your glide boost, right, you can pop out, right click, and then pop back in, right? And then again, you just want to be using your abilities in a way that helps you do all of the different things that you do for Juno, right? I don't like the drop from the high ground. I think that you can stay on height, and again, there's a lot of like extra movement here, right? So you move down here. Hold on. Here we go. So you get the pick on the Reaper there. You start moving up the steps, which is the right call, but then you get distracted and you think that you have to like heal your already full HP Roadhog to even a little bit more, right? When really you can just continue moving up the steps. So because you didn't just continue moving up the steps, you feel like you have to glide boost up the steps, which means you don't have your glide boost for later in this fight. And you also have like kind of a hard angle on your Echo, right? If you were just already up here, couldn't you just look up, heal her, and then look up and over, shoot the Ana, shoot the Reinhardt, or turn around and shoot your Roadhog, right? Or again, walk out over here, get the glide boost, right click, and then go back into cover and continue shooting whoever you need to be shooting, right? Generally, I don't like dropping off the high ground for no reason. I also don't think that the speed ring helps anyone but you're also not the one who needs speed. You don't have to get anywhere quickly. You don't have to leave anywhere quickly. And again, if the speed ring helps your team or you move into a position that they're good at or move away from a position that they're weak in, then that's how I have you reusing the ring. I also have you using the ring if you personally need the speed boost that it can provide to you on its deployment, as well as when going through it. But I don't think that you need either of those at this time. And the only thing that you do with them is justify jumping off of the high ground, which again, we don't like that. We don't like jumping off of the high ground, especially when it isn't for a very rapidly apparent reason, right? We're a little too far away from walls, corners, cover, so after we kill the Reinhardt here, that's a big condition being set, so I'm looking to just get right back to where I'm good. And again, this is really helpful if we just don't drop off the high ground in the first place, right? So Reaper's going to TP, use our ears, right? We hear him TP over to the right side, and the match has been long enough that we're kind of close to ultimate, so we want to consider he probably has his ult. He lets a rip here. That way we're not surprised when he goes for the ult rip. And again, we want to be in walls, corners, and covers. And there's a lot of time and a lot of movement dedicated to like... I just want to ask, and this is terrible. I hate asking why, because like why infers blame or implies blame. It implies that like you're the one at fault for like anything that goes wrong. But that's not quite true. But I do want to know, like, what is the specific matrix of reasons that makes you think that you have to be here, right? And then for the next movement, right? You're over here. You're still out in the open, but you're a little more in cover. And again, you should just be on high ground, right? But I want the point to be very, very clear. And then you're boosting over here, but like look at how much extra movement is here, right? Look at how you go from side to side, back and forth, right? So like why, right? What I'm asking is, what is the reason to swing all the way out here and then swing all the way out here when like you could just be going up to high ground, you could just be staying in one space? I would be curious about like, do you have a very specific reason or a very specific set of reasons for every single little movement that you make? And at least I don't see it, and that will absolutely get you stuck. It seems like a very little thing, but it will absolutely get you stuck in the metal ranks if you move in ways that like you aren't thinking about, right? If I move in a way that just ends up putting me into the crosshair of my opponent, then at the end of the day, I really can't be too frustrated about that because I'm the one who's not thinking about how I'm moving and where that's putting me, right? And like, okay, yeah, where I move is where I'm going to end up. Where I move myself is where I will put myself. Like, obviously, no duh, right? But Like, yes. So that's something that we should be thinking about. That's something we should be like really, really conscientious of. How am I moving, right? And is it putting me where I want to be, right? Where I want to be is going to be based on like where my character is good. And by the way, no character is good out in the open. Everyone is good on high ground, close to walls, corners, and covers. You'll hear that emulated in every single one of my VOD reviews, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it or the matrix of reasons that that we use to justify these positions. The glide boost out of spawn, the ring out of spawn. Now you don't have those cooldowns here to help with this, right? So the right clicky is not really advantageous, right? The right clicky again. I would start comboing the right clicking in the shift, the right click or the torpedoes and the glide boost a lot more than you are. Or I would actually start with that and then go from there. Don't drop off height. Don't drop off height. And now that you've deployed a ring, right, have a very specific reason that you've deployed that ring. Is it to help your Roadhog kite back? Is it to help your Roadhog walk forward so that he can get a hook on targets who are walking out of his range? Is it so that you can get back up to high ground as quickly as possible, which is exactly how you should be using the ring, which is why you should be double jumping here and then double jumping here. That way you can help your person, because now you have your right click back and you had no problem using the right click onto one enemy and one ally earlier. What is keeping you from jumping back up here and helping your teammate win their duel that you could equalize here? Not only do you get into a good position, but you also help your ally and defeat your enemy. That's simultaneity. That's several things at once, right? And that's also not something that you would have to think, oh my goodness, and you end up there anyways too, right? So it's interesting how like you have the right idea, you just actually need to engage yourself in like the easiest, most efficient, fastest process by which to do it, right? That's more disciplined cooldown usage, right? Still using your cooldowns early on, but like not using them as early as you'd like, using them, you know, instead of ringing out of spawn and shifting out of spawn, you know, just ringing yourself out of spawn and then waiting to save the shift until you actually have a right click lined up, or until you actually need to traverse over like a gap or something like that, right? Until you have a reason to use all of the different things that this shift ability, that the right click ability, that the E ability, the ring, the torpedoes, the rays. Sorry, I named keyboard keys and inputs instead of ability names. You know, that will be helpful to you, right? Another good general rule is, like, if you have it, use it, but I'm a lot less concerned about that here. I would rather you have reasons for using your abilities and reasons for moving where you do. This is very good. This is good. I like the healing. I like the damage. I like the fact that you aren't using abilities necessarily, like, when you shouldn't, although I would use the right click here, right? Be careful. You're jumping around a lot. It makes your shots very difficult to land, right? How easy do you think it is actually to be jumping up and down? Now you have to move your mouse around. Now he's jumping around, so he's going to be hard to hit, right? If we look at your aim, I mean, it's interesting to note that, I mean, I think personally, and you're free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think personally that like jumping around is part of what is making the shots harder to hit there, as opposed to just standing still because he's not shooting at you. You can move at any point, especially if you're comfortable with your aim, but if you're not comfortable with your aim and you just want to land your shots, then just stand still until he starts shooting at you and land your shots, right? And if you land your shots, then that's actually less time that he gets to shoot at you, right? So you don't even have to move that much after you start moving from standing still just to hit your shots, right? That's a very important principle. More damage equals less pressure. If you're doing more damage on your opponents than they're doing onto you, then odds are is that you're going to be more free to do more damage, and they will be more restricted to do more damage. All right, yeah. Interesting. Ult when you have it, as soon as you have it. This advice is absolutely wisdom. It's absolute truth as well. Ult when you have it. So literally at this time, I am pressing my Q key. And it's also interesting to imagine that if you press your Q key here, and also interesting, I didn't complain about that right clicky, although I haven't complained about most of the right clickies, I think. That's not true. I've complained about some of the right clickies. The thing is, about this right clicky is, you know what I really liked about this? You used your glide boost with it. You ring your Roadhog, which is nice for the engage phase, right? Starting the engage phase of the fight where your team is moving into them and starting their side of the fight, right? Starting out with ring is very good. And then also using your cooldowns with your teammates, with your cooldowns that work well with your other cooldowns while your teammates are using ults and cooldowns, right? This all works very well. This is timing in Overwatch. This is what it looks like. And so going for the cooldown here, the right click while you're in shift, while you're gliding around, is really, really excellent. I like this. Now you just have to ult when you have it. And it's interesting to imagine that if you ult here, which by the way, double jumping in Overwatch, stop doing that. But you know what's really fun? Double jumping or over shatters, or like jumping around as Baptiste, so that you dodge Doomfists who are going for punches, right? Or jumping away as Ana, or like lunging away as Hanzo whenever Umaga goes for a stomp, right? So when you're jumping, again, you want to be doing it for specific reasons. Do everything in Overwatch with intention. You're stuck for 25 games because you aren't being intentional about every single thing that you do. And is that exhausting? Yes, 100%. But it's something that's going to be exhausting early on, but like gets more exhausting the further up ladder you go. It is exhausting to play some of the games that I have to play, right? But that's because players kind of know how to play against the way that I'm playing, right? And I have to think even harder around that, right? But at the end of the day, aligning myself with these principles makes these scenarios a lot easier to play around. So like players are going to punish me a lot harder in higher elos for jumping around, but jumping around is still an option that I have for establishing or for engaging in counterplay here, right? So if you're, instead of jumping around like randomly, if you're jumping around because you know he has shatter and because you can use your double jump to dodge shatter, right? Then that's really good. But it's interesting as well that if you just Ray here, you're actually a lot more safe while you're shattered, right? And so I really don't mind if you go for the Ray there. Now, do you probably still die? Maybe, and maybe you Ray, so they're forced to use more ults. Maybe your Ray actually helps the Roadhog here, and helps him stay alive a little bit longer or get a little bit more damage with his ult. Maybe it buys him just enough time to push them back and then seek cover. Maybe it helps another ally, or maybe it keeps you alive right there, right? Because it actually does a lot of healing, right? Be careful. This doesn't feel intentional to me. This feels like you're jumping around and then you literally jump over this wall and then you have to press your shift. You have to press your glide boots because you're over the gap, right? But like, is this really how you want to be using your shift? Isn't it just easier to just stay up here and like figure out how the fight is going to go? Like look around, figure out where everyone is, and then you can make your next decision from there, right? But now you've isolated yourself. You are alone. Well, okay, not alone anymore, but you're like, well, you're as alone as you could be. Remora isn't looking at you. You're by yourself. There's a Reaper in your back lines. Oh man, you only right-click the Reaper there, which is really unfortunate. It is nice that you get the pick on that, so actually I'm willing to accept that right-click. Also, you know, if it's damage that you can get without having to like work so hard at aiming, then that's fine. But also, I think aiming would be a lot easier if you're not just like spamming your jump buttons, right? You get the ring, although I think that the ring is maybe not as well placed as it could be, and I think that the ring is what I want to be using to help my teammates here. So I'm either ringing my Echo here so that they can get out of a bad situation because they're alone on cart while the team is there, or I'm ringing my Moira so that she can get more distance between herself and the Reaper, and so that my Hog can walk out even a little bit faster, right? Going for the right click here instead of a right click like from this position, right? Makes sense. So also it's interesting that you start over here, you jump over the wall, you're forced to glide boost, and then instead of immediately going to your next good position, right, which is going to be up here, right, that gives you a really nice solid right clicky, even if it is still only onto 2 targets instead of the 1 that you pick. Because remember, a way to understand how to play Juno well is engaging simultaneity, right? So so it's interesting that all this time you spend out in the middle of the open instead of getting to your next good spot, right? You have your Ray though, so you really want to let it rip, and right now is as good a time as any to do it. Be really careful about gliding over the edge. Remember, intentionality. Is there a reason for you to be over here? If Cassidy walks up, if they have a Cassidy and he walks up and he hinders you, you will fall into there. If there is a Roadhog and he hooks you, you won't have your glide boots. You will fall into there. If there is a Lucio who boops you at the end of your glide boots duration, you will fall into here. So like, is there really a point to playing here? Or could you just be playing this corner, peeking out and shooting? Or even better, could you just be playing this cover, right? Or this high ground? Or could you have just stayed up here the entire time because they don't have anyone who would challenge you, and you're still able to do literally everything that you can do, including ringing your Roadhog, getting a right click, and raying down to a position that the fight will be concentrated, right? I think that you have really, really good options, and I think that your good options are kind of occluded by the fact that we're doing things without very specific reasons to be doing them. You don't have to be wrong, or I'm sorry, you don't have to be right. You just have to have an idea of what you want to do and how you want to do it, right? But that's the idea. idea, right? If you have an idea of how you want to cast your ult, it's possible that you're not gliding out into the middle of the open in where a Cassidy could hinder you, or your glide boots could be canceled somehow, or whatever, right? If you have an idea of how you want to engage in the next fight, you're like, okay, I want to right click like 4 people this time. Maybe you know that it's actually better to just stay up here while the cart passes underneath you, and the rest of the red team is going to stand on the objective because everyone stacks on the objective in this elo, right? I think that if you have an idea of like how you want to do things, I think that it will give you, I think that it will make you actually just like look better by default, even if it leads to wrong decisions and wrong choices or mistakes. But honestly, the way to get better in Overwatch, the way to not be stuck for several consecutive sessions worth of games, is to go in and make mistakes, right? Make as many mistakes as quickly as possible. Make them each unique. Don't make the same mistake, and especially don't make the same mistakes consecutively. And build up a catalog. Build up a catalog of what you can and can't get punished for. Careful. Unintentional movement makes you just drop off of the high ground. There's no reason to drop. There's no reason to drop off the high ground in this particular scenario. And honestly, just in general, when you're playing Overwatch, you want to be on high ground. Careful, careful, careful. Just a little bit of map knowledge. There is a little ledge here that you can glide to, right? And again, this is what's getting you into trouble, is this like really unintentional movement, right? So you're just, you're either not watching where you're going, or you're not thinking about like where you want to end up, right? So you just end up like not looking at where your paths are, right? I would just be really careful about like cut down the intentional movement, but then also like look around you a lot more. Look around you to see where your teammates are. Look around you to see where your red team is and where your opponents are. Look around to see what the next section of the map to abuse is, right? Can't you double jump on this car? Can't you double jump on this barricade? Be more observant, more intentional, more detail oriented, and that's going to put you in a really good position to start winning your games. It's a little unfortunate for you to die there, but I'd be lying if I told you that much more embarrassing things have happened to me just as early as this afternoon's competitive session, where I got absolutely rolled by a roadhog who I kept letting walk within 20 meters of me. I was like, I want to damage this roadhog, and then he would hook and one-shot me, and I would just do it all again because I think he's not going to do it 2 times in a row. And guess what he did? 2 times in a row. So, like I said, I'd be lying if I would be. I'm telling you the truth when I say I've definitely seen a lot graver mistakes, but it's the basis of this mistake. It's the nature of this mistake that is particularly egregious. It's mistakes that are based off of like a lack of awareness that could be attained, right? It is not as if you could be like brand new to the game, right? And a lot of this stuff would be not necessarily like passable or permissible or like acceptable, right? It's not like, oh, okay, you're new, so you don't know that Echo can fly around, copy you, and then use your ult, right? Whatever, right? But even if you're new, you can still be observant. You can still see this down here. You can still see this high ground up here. You can still understand that these high ground positions are key points to control. And you can still understand the fact that the choke point in any video game ever, the choke point is the worst place to spend any amount of time, right? So you know that you can know that you have to get away from those positions. You can know that health packs are very, very important to be able to anchor to and to control, right? And you can also know that well, there's a couple of things. I could go on and on, but you don't necessarily have to be an Overwatch expert to be able to see, hear, observe, and consider things. Again, it's not about being right. You don't have to play Overwatch correctly. You just have to play Overwatch in a way that suits the way that you want to engage in the game. But that's the point: engaging in the game, being fully engaged, right? Be decisive, be intentional, right? Oh man, and don't glide, don't press your glide boots just because you jump over the pit, and if you don't press your glide boots, you're going to die, right? At the very least, now use the glide boots to shimmy up the wall and get onto this high ground. That's a real mechanic, by the way. Yeah, you see how you almost did it? You see how like you actually ended up like ducking under because you connected to the point where this slopes down instead of to the wall, which will slope you up, right? So actually, unironically, you can actually shimmy up to the high ground. And again, that's something that like you might not know if you are like brand new to Overwatch. And I'm so sorry, I don't mean to insinuate that you are or aren't brand new to Overwatch. I'm just saying, there are things that you can know without being deeply embedded in the game for several 100,000 hours, right? So I love Emre, by the way. So So be really intentional, right? Again, don't glide over the pit just because if you don't hit your glide, you're going to die. Glide over the pit because it helps you get to your next good spot, because it helps you get a position for your right clicks, because it helps you speed to a teammate who needs your help, or get away from an enemy who is threatening you. We get the speed ring there. This is actually a decent right click, or rather, it's not like a valuable right click, but it's like the right idea, right? You have lots of enemies, lots of allies in your line of sight, and oh, I like this perk too. I like Yoshi both of the major perks. Yep. You see how playing away from walls, corners, and covers is hurting you here against the Emre ult, right? And it happens as early as, as early as here. Let's see. Okay, you're not near walls. You are near walls now. You're not near cover. Now you're near cover. Now you're away. Now you're near. Now you're away. Now you're near. But it doesn't, again, like, you could be up here, you could be up here. There's like a lot of like ambient, like back and forth movement down here, but like this isn't your comfortable range. This isn't where you can get your right clickies. You have your abilities. I would love to see them be able to be used sooner and be really easy to just walk out of spawn really directly, like just really intentionally. As soon as you're sent back to spawn, you're thinking, where do I want to be when I come back to life, right? And maybe you just path through here, come up here, press your shift click, press your glide boost, line up a right click, and then just jump back down here. And then on the basis of like who needs healing next, you go to them, or on your next glide boost, you can just end up over here, right? Or you can jump over here and then do damage over here while you're jumping over here, or even like cross the distance over here. And if you want to be or need to be particularly safe, walk all the way around here and then end up here. And by that time, you'll have another right clicky, right, to use onto the opponents. The team will the fight will have changed. You will be building your ultimate, right? But here we just see you kind of out in the middle of the open, away from your effective ranges, away from teammates to heal, allies to damage, ultimates to generate, allies to speed boost, people to glide to or from, positions to glide to, and again, the openness is a huge liability for us because we're not near our walls, corners, and covers. We're liable to take damage instances that we don't necessarily need to justify. It's really good that you guys end up managing to dispatch this particular threat, but it troubles me that a whole coalescence has to be used to help us and then turn on him, instead of just coalescence being used to give Moira the range that she needs to contest that, right? If I'm Moira, I don't want to heal my Juno because my Juno is standing out in the middle of the open taking damage. I want to damage the Emre who's looking to do damage to my Juno who is already hiding around corners and covers, right? Because in one scenario, my Juno is like openly presented for the Emre to do damage to, which will necessitate my resources, as opposed to me coalescing while the Emre is ulting, because the Emre wants to move to the position that the Juno is in, right? So Emre ults, if Juno is in here, right, maybe he closes the distance to her, and then I'm free to choose to heal my Juno or damage the Emre. Although if you hear the Emre chasing, you can just continue path through castle, right? So what I'm saying is, I would much rather, if I'm Moira, my healing resources be used for teammates that like really do need them, as opposed to healing my teammates who are just taking damage for the sake of taking damage, or who are taking damage for like no particular reason. If you're taking damage, then there should be a good set of reasons for it. You never want to take damage for no reason in Overwatch, right? And that's also why it's easy to get stuck, especially on supports, because all your team does is stand in chokes and take damage, right? Remember what I said earlier about chokes being like the worst place to spend any time? Why do you think our Echo died? We've been here for the last 16 seconds, right? Actually, how long? It's been 22 seconds, and we haven't moved from this particular spot, right? From this one section of the map. If we zoom out far enough, actually, we'll see that our whole team is playing on like the exact same coordinates, and also that our whole team hasn't moved, right, this whole time, right? So, I like that right click. I really like that right click. I don't care as much for the speed boost because your hog isn't moving in, right? And you really want to speed boost your hog through choke. Ooh, be careful. Play for the range, right? Instead of continuing to jump out in the open, what if he cancels his shift and just turns around and smacks you because you're jumping out in the middle of the open, right? So you go for the right click here, which I like, just on the basis that you like have a lot of lock-ons there, but it probably isn't the well-timed right click. The same way that like this speed ring is like okay, but like probably not the best possible speed ring. But you're gonna have a trouble getting the best possible things because of just the team isn't playing in the best possible way, right? And so be really careful once you take this kind of damage, and you're taking this kind of damage because, by the way, you are instead of playing close to walls, corners, and covers, you're like jumping around in the middle of the open. There's no cover for you, so you're taking all of this damage damage, and then after taking all this damage and forcing him to Wraith, you don't immediately sit behind this turret, right, and get full HP, right? Instead, you're continuing to path out into the open. You're looking to chase him. You even shift. You use your shift to like get the distance on him, even though like he's still in line of sight of you, right? He does have a little bit of speed boost during his Wraith form, right? So this is greedy. This is greedy from you. And I think that the worst part of it for me is the cooldown usage there. But again, like this is all predicated on like you're not playing your walls, corners, and covers out in the open, which is why you're easy to fire strike. Oh man, you're walking in fire strikes. That Ryan has shatter now, and it's gonna be partially your fault. All right, let's see. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So this is where the speed ring and the right clickies are really useful, right? The speed ring to help our team force through these very challenging positions, and the right clickies to enable my team. It's to mitigate the damage that they'll take while moving through these positions, and also remember, more damage equals less pressure, right? So if you do damage to the enemy team, right, through your right clicky, right, if you get like 200 damage through a combined 5-person right clicky, and you get a little bit of healing on top of that as well, it's going to be harder for them to just stand out in the open and continue damaging your team, right? So you actually buy space for your team by healing them, damaging enemies, and using your speed ring here, right? So that's really how you want to be using your speed ring. Use your speed ring to get people into places that they want to be in, or get teammates away from spaces that they don't want to be in. And remember, it's always safer in than out, right? It's always safer in than out. So if it's to this mini pack, if it's through the gate, because no one is standing in choke. There's no one actually keeping you from just zooming through. Now, will zooming through get you killed? Yeah, 100%, right? But also, so too will gliding around here in the open. In fact, you even stop moving at one point, right? You see how you haven't moved really from this entire round, right? So when I'm playing Reaper against this, I know that you're going to play the exact same way, right? If you've been here the whole time, guess where I'm going to think you are the next time the fight starts? Right here, right? Where you haven't moved away from, right? So there's more of the map to use. Use 80% of the map instead of 20, right? Anchor yourself here and use this cover to do poke damage against the Reaper. Force his cooldowns out earlier. Make him less confident in taking duels with you. Come use this mini pack. Line up a right clicky. Don't line up a right clicky through this door, but you could speed your Roadhog through this door, right? So that he dodges the sleep or manages to juke the nade, right? You can speed ring him through the choke, and you can do that from this position as well. I actually got picked in a really embarrassing fashion just for walking at a spawn this way. I got 2-tapped by an Ashe, but that's because I choose this way to walk at a spawn to set up on this angle. Right now I play DPS, but that's not necessarily something that you have to do as deeps. In fact, I don't really like supports playing on top of each other because this makes us susceptible to taking the same instance of damage at the same time. Support should really be playing like away from each other, or like not away from each other, but like off of each other, right? So Moira can be here and you can be here, and you can still see and help each other a little bit, or you can still get access to each other, but you aren't standing on top of each other so that you're taking the same damage and being threatened by the same threats, right? If Overwatch is about two principles, which is timing and map control, isn't it interesting that the Reaper forces you out into your section of the map at the same time that your team is wanting to go in, right? It's always safer in, or it's always better in, really, right? You're no safer in, right? But now you're forcing the fight to happen on your side of the choke. And remember, if the choke is like the worst position to spend any time in any first-person shooter, then you want to be forcing these encounters on their side of the choke, right? So that's very, very important to consider. And your abilities are what help you guys get through that. And honestly, if your teammates aren't going to move through the choke, then you can't let them blame you for you trying to move through the choke, right? But you don't want to sit here inert in the same position that you've been in, because that's going to make you more easy to counterplay, and it's going to make it more restrictive for your team. It's going to reduce your options. And you see how this high ground isn't controlled right now? You could just double jump up here, and then that gives you your scouting profile. You would be able to see that the Reaper is down here, which justifies you being up here, or he would see you up here and he would be like, oh, I'm going to TP in on that Juno, right? And then by that point, you've double jumped, glided, lined up a right clicky, and now he has to instantly wraith because you have been ready for him to jump you, all because you saw him down here, right? All because you scouted that. And so information is really, really important, and it's really, really important to be picking up as much information as you possibly can. But see, now we're back. We're back in now. We have our ult here. They've used their ult. Perfect. Marvelous. This is exactly what I want to see. But see how at the time when we cast our ult, which moves forward, we also started moving backwards. Did we notice that? Let's take a look. Doesn't that seem incongruent, right? Doesn't that seem counterproductive. The ultimate that moves forward as we cast it, we move backwards. The ultimate that moves forward and damages and amplifies our damage and heals us, right? That we are now moving away from. The moment that you're out of this ray, you're no longer healing from the damage that you're taking, right? So, like, don't you want to be moving forwards here? Don't you want to be in the ray, right? But you're scared of being in the ray. Oh, man, don't be scared. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of a couple of silver players standing in a choke on an Icon Vault, a map that literally no one knows how to play. Like, very few people apparently know how to play, but everyone is voting for. Don't be afraid of those, because you can absolutely roll that matchup, right? So cast the ray, help your Roadhog, get your team to move forward, line up a right-clicking, and do your thing, right? This is your time. This is your opportunity to push, go in, and either make a play or make a mistake, because no matter what, the play is going to help you win the match, or the mistake is going to help you learn how to do it differently next time someone votes for some psych-involved voter votes for Ike, right? And so also it's interesting how if you just move through the ray as soon as you can, like, you actually get earlier picks on the Ana. You get a better angle for your right clickies, right? You get a more dedicated, you don't get a dedicated speed ring, right? But it's interesting how you have to use the glide boots to catch up to the ray that you cast, right? So was the plan to cast your ray? And if so, why does it seem like you're actually almost surprised when the ray goes out, right? Why does it seem like you're actually not ready to play in a way that that Juno would want to play when she casts the ray? Unless your answer is, well, I don't want to be in the ray that I cast as Juno, right? And that's our opportunity to correct that, right? That's our opportunity to say, no, Juno absolutely wants to be in the ray, right? It amplifies damage, it does healing, right? So there's no reason to cast the ray and then watch your teammates use it while you're stuck on your side of the choke, right? No, you casted the ray so that you can get through the choke, which is a brilliant cast. That's a really good cast, right? So I want you to be confident in, like, you know what you're doing with that ray cast, and you just have to follow through with your good idea. Really excellent. I liked the timing on that. It could have been ripped even a little bit earlier. I'm a big believer in, if you have it, use it. If you can't use it, find a reason to. And if you can't find a reason to use it, then make one. And watch out, it's always safer in than out, right? So instead of spending time in the choke, which is very, very bad, you want to just glide through. Just glide through or speed ring through. That way you can get to your next point of map control. Remember, the two principles of Overwatch are timing and map control. Map control, a really demonstrable instance of map control, is literally wherever there's a health pack. If you are near a health pack, then you can control that section of the map, because you are the one who is padding the amount of health that you have to work that section of the map. So just bear in mind that, like, timing and map control, it's always safer in than out, and honestly, especially if that brings you closer to health packs and to high ground. Excellent. Yeah, I like healing the Juno, I like healing the Echo. Just be careful. I would rather your teammates come to you, because you definitely want to continue playing in spots where your character is good, and also your Roadhog needs a little bit of help. So part of the reason I don't like support stacking on top of each other is because oftentimes that means that they're looking at the same target. But, like, if I have a Moira who can heal and a Juno can heal, and I have two targets that are critical HP, like, do I really have both of them healing one target and then the other? No, I have both of them healing their individual targets, because they both have the healing capacity to do that, right? So be really careful about like being in the same place at the same time as your other support and healing and stuff like that. Your speed rings are, like, really not. They've been like kind of progressively, like, getting a little less helpful for your teammates. It seems like you're not using rings to put your teammates in positions that they want to be, or to get them out of positions that they want to be, or even to give yourself the speed boost where you need, right? You kind of need the speed boost here because you've been willing to wander so far away from your Roadhog for an Echo who is going out instead of in. Remember, it's always better in than out. Wouldn't it be easier for you to heal your Echo if she came into you as opposed to going out where you have to chase her? In fact, at that point, I even wonder to myself if I need to be healing the Echo, right? My hog needs, my Roadhog needs healing, and he's going to get antied here, and that's a little unfortunate, right? And then he backs off. He backs off into the worst position to ever play any map. This is why I don't like Icon Vault. This is why I don't like people who vote for Icon Vault. It's because we don't go into castle, we don't take high ground, we actually just kind of, like, sit in chokes, right? And so don't be one of the Icon Vault voters that vote for this map, but then continues, like, then plays it in a way that, like, the map doesn't want to be played, right? Find the high ground, go in, take the castle, right? So, I mean, that's I mean, And this is a literal siege, right? A siege scenario that's happening here, right? I promise you that, like in those wonderful, glorious medieval battles and in the movies and Lord of the Rings and all these fantasy novels that we read, never do you see the advancing forces stop taking fight or stop the fight here in the choke point. No, no, no. They are always running the ladders right up to the ramparts and climbing right up. And do those first guys get absolutely cooked by the defenders? Yes, absolutely. But eventually, after enough advantages, after enough time, with enough attrition, you manage to take that castle and then move on to the next fortified outpost. And they have even less resources to deal with your threat, the threat that you pose, than they did last time, right? I like how close you are to walls, corners, covers here. Although you're out here in the middle of the open, you're about a meter away, and it's interesting that this is like the one time that you're not jumping, right? So I'm not going to say that like you should be tracking ults right now, because that's a little bit higher level of a concept, but that is something that's beneficial to you. Like, if enough time has passed in a match, is it possible that it is likely that they have Shatter, right? If the answer is yes, then we play in a way as if they have Shatter, right? So we sit there and we say, okay, if Reinhardt probably has Shatter, then I probably don't want to be in front of him at a range of about 20, 25 meters. I forget actually how long Shatter is, but it's really past the point. If he has Shatter, it's possible that I want to be ready to jump over the Shatter, right? If he has Shatter, it's possible that I want to be with a different character, right? Does Reinhardt want to Shatter Roadhog? Probably. So I probably don't want to be stacked on top of my Roadhog. I can probably be off-angled with one of my DPS, right? Be careful. I don't think I care for this ring. Hold on, I'm looking. It's interesting that you're not ringing your teammates here. I think that you could be ringing your teammates here through the choke so that they can get through the choke as quickly as possible, or saving your ring for like the choke so that you can ring the choke so that they can get through it as quickly as possible. You want to spend as little time to chokes. Like who are you ringing here? You're ringing the Reaper. The Reaper got the ring. He can't even use the ring, but the Reaper got the ring. And then you guys aren't using the speed boost to like get through the choke, which is really, really challenging. As long as you don't move through this choke, you won't win, right? I mean, that's just the way that it is, right? So using your abilities to get through the choke, or even like, you can double jump up here and then double jump over here and then glide and land it right clicking, and the whole team will turn around, and all of a sudden your team is free to walk through the choke because they don't have 5 people staring at them here. They've got 3 people staring at you on this side, and you're already moving to castle so that you can start shooting people from here and distracting them so that their hold on this choke point like gradually weakens, right? So you have options, and you're only playing 20% of the map right now, and you have to play 80. You have to play as much of the map as you possibly can. Yeah, I like that speed ring. It competes with the nano boost perk. I don't like that right click as much. I would really just be raying there. They've committed an ult to that, and you can too, and it helps your hog even a lot more if he has the speed ring and the damage boost. Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah, Ryan shatters a cone. That's actually so funny. You're getting you're slept on top of. That's funny. That's a pretty funny. So you really want to so it's a little unfortunate that the shatter is a cone, and so that means that even for your elevated position there, the further you are away from the shatter, the higher in the air you have to be to dodge it. Basically, is how that works. This is fine. Remember, you have to get through the choke, and I think your speed rings out of spawn and your glide boost out of spawn have to stop. I think that you actually just have to cut out the speed rings and glide boost out of spawn. I think use your legs to walk out of spawn, and then after that, you can figure out what you want to do with those cooldowns. And remember, the ray is to all of your kit is actually to be simultaneous, right? Do healing and damage with your gun, healing and damage with your right click, your torpedoes. You do reposition and movement speed with your glide boost, and let your teammates kite in and out with your ring. It's interesting that this fight is at least going a little bit better you guys' way now that you've walked through our side of the choke. And that's not just a you thing, but there's a lot that you can do to make walking through the choke easy, not the least of which is using our ultimate. How long have we actually had this? Okay, so we've only just built this here, which means really, as soon as we build our ult, we want to be thinking about how we want to use it. Actually, when we're 80% to our ult, we want to be thinking about how we want to use our ultimate, right? So really, what I see you doing here is ult your team right now. Ult through the choke, right? Because you won't win if you don't move through this position. This is a very bad position to be in. You don't want to be in this position. You want to be in chokes for as little time as possible. And let me tell you, there's no better reason than to walk through a choke than that your giant orbital laser is moving through the choke as well, right? No better reason to move through the choke because my Lucio has amped speed. No better reason to move through the choke because there is a ring there that I can pass through, right? So ult ult. You must ult, right? But the principle is the same across the whole spectrum of Overwatch characters and Overwatch playstyles. If you if you have utilities that help your team move out of bad positions into better ones and open up opportunities to use your characters, all of the things that your characters are capable of, then go for it. Generally, by the way, I don't like supports on the objective. Supports are powerful units. You could be dueling the Emre, you could be taking high ground, you could be finding a mega pack to control, you could be scouting, right? Who do you see? Who do you not see? Who can you hear? You could be planning about how to set up for your ultimate. Not to mention the fact that, like, guess where this guy just jumped onto? The objective. So if you're just moving the objective, then guess who's liable to take the damage that he's throwing onto the objective? That's right, it's you, right? So you don't want to be liable to take the objective, or to take damage that you're taking just because you're standing on the objective and they're throwing damage on the objective. The only damage that you want to be taking is damage that you're saying, I'm willing to take this damage so that I can assess or fulfill this risk for this particular payoff, right? You don't want to be taking damage just because I happened to be in the spot where the damage was going at a certain time, right? That's a bad instance of damage to be taking. But it's okay for you to be gliding around here in the air and take a little bit of Yari poke because you want to line up a right-clicky, right? Which, by the way, Juno's Blaster, not effective at this range, right? So don't worry about doing damage at this range, right? You want to be closing the distance at this range. And a great way to do that is ult. If you can't heal your teammates, if your teammates aren't bringing their fights to you, then don't worry about them. You have a Roadhog that you need to move across the highway with, right? Also, again, you can double jump here and then double jump here. So I would spend some time in custom games. I would boot up the maps and just figure out what movement and traversal looks like. You really want to maximize and make efficient your Juno map traversal. Little bit late, and you want to be in it. You want to be in it. It's always better in than out. It is always better in than out. It's always better in than out. I promise, over 5+ years of coaching, I cannot tell you that I am lying. I would love to tell you that I'm lying. I would love to be able to say I'm wrong, because I like being right, but, you know, I like being challenged as well. I would love to be able to say I'm mistaken, but I can't. It's always better in than out, especially when you've cast an ult that justifies you going in. I'm glad that you guys win this map. I don't necessarily know how I feel about the fact that you did. But I do... There's a lot of things that that you can be thinking about. There's a lot of things that will give you direction, right? Is it building your ult to use it to build it again? Is it spending less time in chokes, right? Pushing your teammates with your abilities or your positioning, right? If I see my Frog running ahead of me, if I see my Juno gliding ahead of me, as a tank player, I'm probably going to move in. As a DPS player, I'm probably going to move in because I know that's where the healing's at. I know where that's the fight, that's where the fight's about to be concentrated, right? And so if I and so it could be moving through, spending less time in chokes. It could be intentional movement. In fact, I think that should really be your focus, right? Intentional movement and meaningful, efficient traversal, right? Where am I going? Where do I want to go? How do I end up there as quickly or as timely as possible, right? Playing your spacing, right? Playing within effective range for your gun, within range of your right clicks, outside of the effective ranges of your enemies, right? 20 meters away from Roadhog, 10 meters away from Reaper, right? However long or high for Reinhardt and his Shatter, right? It could be it being safer in than out. There's a lot of different directions that you can go on, but ultimately, I like the fact that your Juno is seeking to do a lot of different things. It looks like you are looking to set yourself up in safe positions. It looks like you are trying to care as many of your teammates as you can. It looks like you're trying to follow up with your team, but it often ends up looking as if that really is more following your team, when really I have you doing your own thing, right? There are 3 core rule sets that you play Overwatch by. That's going to be the character, who am I playing, the matchup, who am I playing against, and the comp, who am I playing with, right? And if Roadhog doesn't want to spend much time in chokes, because the longer he spends in chokes, the more damage he takes, right? Then what I would like to do as Juno is move him through that choke with my abilities, right? And that helps me understand how I can use my abilities a little bit better, right? We saw a lot of things that were kind of like random, that were, I have my key, so I'll press it, whether it was the WASD keys, the movement, right? Or whether it was the abilities, right? And I'm telling you that your knowledge of the game doesn't have to be what drives you to make your decisions. It could just be on the things you observe. So at the end of the day, my advice is to be panic less, observe more, think a little more clearly and try to see and try to see how much you can see, how much you can hear, how much you can sense about as much as you can, as often as you can, right? Wow. I don't know what's happening here. Huh. Huh. I don't know what happened here. I don't know how you're supposed to win with that. And honestly, you probably aren't supposed to, but at the end of the day, you'll be able to create options for yourself, right? And the more options you have, the quicker you pass through the choke, the sooner you rip on your ult, the more damage you apply. The more options you have, the easier it's going to be to establish advantages, which eventually accumulate into match wins and losses, right? I don't know what advantages contributed to you guys' win here, but I can tell you that the advantages that will contribute to wins in the future are going to be ones that are defined by your timely use of ultimates, your willingness to get to your next good position, your expert navigation of the maps, and as well using these abilities to help achieve the ends and means of your team as opposed to yourself. Again, we saw you shifting and gliding. We saw you glide boosting and speed ringing out of spawn a lot of times when you could be doing that for your team, or you could be doing that to take a new position, or you could be doing that to be up here and do damage, right? And so I want to see like a lot more intentionality. And once we start seeing a lot more intentionality, that'll help us see a lot more mistakes that are like specifically up to you. And that will give us matches that are where the outcome is defined by your contributions, right? Instead of a match that you win and I'm left wondering, I kind of wonder why we won that, right? It's absolutely remarkable that you brought yourself out of the dregs of bronze by gripping your bootstraps and plunging into the silver elo. But it's absolutely clear that this doesn't have to be your peak. If you're stuck for several consecutive competitive sessions, it's really important to jump into the replay codes and ask yourself why you're making any one particular decision. And if you don't have a clear reason, then figure out what different decision you want to make and what the reasoning might be behind that. Remember, you don't have to be right. You just have to have an idea of how you want to do it differently on the basis of what you can observe, what you can see, what you can hear, and what you know about your character, right? We may not know, right? We may not know that we can jump up, right? Double jump here and then double jump here, right? Or that we can glide boost to shimmy up the ledge, right? But we absolutely do know that our Ray moves forward, right? So we should move forward with it. Edwin, thank you so much for the replay code. I was particularly hard on you because I'm very detail oriented, and at least at this level, there's like actually so much to talk about, and there's some really really important universal principles, and that's usually what all of my VOD reviews end up devolving into. Usually, it's after years of working with me that VOD reviews get really fast, and I just say, yeah, you're not close to your walls, corners, covers, right? Yeah, you just need to ult more, right? When really, these early experiences, it's kind of important to kind of explain why it's important to make some of these decisions. But for you, I want to see just more decisions, right? I want to see what the mistakes look like. I want to see what the plays look like. I want to see what the movement looks like, right? When there is a specific reason for every single little thing that you do. I think that will help you get unstuck, because at the end of the day, you will either win games because you are making decisions, or you will lose games because you are making decisions. And both of that is operable. But winning and losing games just because you happen to be in the lobby, right? Taking damage because you happen to be in the place where the damage lands, right? That isn't going to help us understand what the next direction to send you in is. There's a lot of directions that you can go in here, and I'm really, really thankful that you have given us an opportunity to talk about those different directions. Pick any one that you would like and engage with that core idea in your next series of competitive sessions. Feel free to leave any questions, comments, considerations, contributions, or contentions in the comments below, or in the thread in which you originally posted this this replay code. I'm really excited to see if you seek additional help from some of the other coaches. If they say anything different, I think that there's some really brilliant ideas that they exchange between them and their VOD reviewees, and it's absolutely worth opening up the options and perspectives that you get exposed to give yourself even more new ideas. I gave you a couple of outlines, right? Jumping to the different high ground positions, such as here, or even over here, going for rays at certain times or abilities abilities with certain conditions. I mentioned doing the shift and the torpedoes, or the glide and the torpedoes at the same time. Other coaches may think differently, and those are really valuable perspectives to have. At the end of the day, the most valuable one, the most operable perspective is going to be yours, and that's going to be slowly but surely or rapidly acquired by, again, going in and making decisions that lead to mistakes, or which lead to positive or negative outcomes, or desired or undesirable outcomes. And that's something that you'll be able to do something with going forward. Edwin, thank you so much for letting us take a look at your gameplay. I hope that I wasn't too hard on you, and I hope that we were able to observe a couple of moments still where we were able to really like some of the things that you were doing, whether it was the targets that you were going on, the allies that you were trying to help, the ultimate plays that you were looking to go for, or the timings that you were abiding by. It's just some of these key things that we want to really refine, and that'll put us in a position where it's possible and easy to look even better than we do here in this lobby. Edwin, thank you again so much for being willing to submit your gameplay for VOD review, and thank you guys so much for watching as well. Be sure to like and comment and subscribe if you'd like to engage with the video and elevate this content so that it is not only more accessible to others, but also so that we are all contributing our ideas. Although make sure that all of the feedback is positively oriented. We are not doing weirdness in the comment section. I'm not going to abide people being weirdos for no reason, being toxic, or needlessly harsh in their criticisms. At the end of the day, we're all just here to play the game. And Edwin, I'm really excited to see you play it even better than we saw in this particular match. With that said, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of the have a wonderful rest of the day, whatever time of day it might be. Be good to each other, and I will see you guys next time.